Welcome back to another week on the podcast. This week, this is sort of a twofold episode. The first little chunk of this is going to be the transits for the rest of the month, since I completely dropped the ball on the monthly transit episode. I don't know what happened, but I didn't do it. And so the first half again, or the first quarter, we'll say, the first little bit, we'll see how it goes. It's going to be the astrology for the end of the month. Most of the big astrology has already happened, and I'll kind of like touch on that a little bit. And then we're going to talk about manifestation because I'm not a manifestation coach. I've been in my own process for a long time, but things have been starting to shift and I've really, really felt it. And so part of my 6 line process is just sharing it with everyone. And so that's what I'm going to do today. But to start, we're going to talk about the transits for the rest of the month. So we've already kind of seen a big month. First of all, last month was huge. And I'm sure you felt it in some way. The eclipses, Venus in retrograde, Mercury in retrograde. So we're officially out of the retrograde active phase, right? So the planets are still in their shadow phase, and Mars, who was retrograde back in, I think it was like November. So we've had an inner planet retrograde since December 2024, if I'm not mistaken. I could be a little incorrect on the dates. And currently, all 3 of them are still in their shadow phase, but all inner planets are direct, which actually feels so good. Like last month was really challenging in its own way, but it was really exciting underneath it as well. Like I think if you're working with the energy, it was a really cool type of energy to feel. So today, as this episode drops, is Thursday, April 17th. On the 12th, Venus went direct. The week before that, Mercury went direct. So again, all these planets are finally giving us a little bit of breathing room. Mercury goes out of its shadow phase on the 26th of the month. So mentally, at least, we might feel a little bit more clarity. We might feel a little bit more forward movement, especially because it goes back into Aries today. Actually, as I'm recording this, Mercury goes into Aries today. And this is that kind of fiery, quick thinking, quick to take action. And we still have a lot in Pisces. And because this is still in that shadow phase, really looking back to what was happening when Mercury originally went into Aries, like what was going on in your mind then? What was happening in your world at that point? And Mercury went retrograde at 9 degrees. So we still have a little while until we hit that. Well, again, to the 26th. The 26th is when it's going to hit that 9-degree mark. And then it's going to be officially out of the whole retrograde period. But again, reassessing and just seeing like what happened when Mercury originally went into Aries. Were there any projects that maybe you were thinking of, any contracts, anything that was kind of like pulling your attention at that time, and just like reflecting and seeing if those themes are coming back up now. Again, Venus is still in its shadow phase, and it will be until, excuse the papers moving, it will be until May 16th. And Mars moves out of its shadow phase May 2nd, but we'll get to that in the whole May episode. So for as far as like retrogrades right now, again, we're all out of retrogrades, but Mars, Venus, and Mercury are still in their shadow phase. We still have that forward movement, but we're still kind of revisiting these things that have come up. Now, this is like so funny. That'd be like funny, not funny, haha. So the last time Venus went retrograde in a fire sign was Venus went retrograde in Leo was it a year and a half ago, I guess? About 18 months ago, maybe? It was the summer of 2023. For me, as a Leo rising, it was wild, like completely wild. And so Venus going retrograde now in Aries, I feel like, so the second half of this is going to be about manifestation. So I'm not going to get too deep in the story because we're going to circle back to it when we come back to Venus, when we go to the manifestation chunk of this episode. But specifically, Venus is money, values, relationships, love, all those things. And so I really feel like I was kind of thrown into the fire a little bit in the last week or so of Venus retrograde. Like I literally felt like for most of Venus retrograde, I was like, wow, I'm good. Like this isn't affecting me. This is really wild because usually this kind of stuff really impacts me. And that last like week and a half, oh, she got me good. And I felt myself like touching the fire a little bit, but I passed the test. And it's just crazy the doors that are opening now, which is just like sometimes astrology is like so literal and wild. And especially with this past full moon having been in Libra, which it was conjunct my South node. And Libra is a little bit of the people pleaser, right? Libra wants peace and balance and harmony. And Libra sometimes will sacrifice itself for that. Right? It avoids conflict. It wants just everybody to be happy. It is really about art. So a lot of times it channels all those emotions. It channels that injustice. It channels all that into art to let somebody else kind of fight the fight, but it like expresses through that way. And Libra to me is like the refined feminine. So Libra in itself is a masculine sign, but it is ruled by Venus, and Venus is like Aphrodite. And Venus also rules Taurus, and Taurus is like that raw feminine, like for inside the book club. And if you're not part of it and you want to join, just send me a message and I'll add you to the book club on Instagram, completely free. We just read books together and it's so beautiful. I love it because everybody sees something different for their personal lived experiences in a book. But we're reading Women Who Run with the Wolves. And I've read this book before. Like my book is shattered, whatever the word is. It's very, very well loved. So I'm having to read on the Kindle. Besides the point, but that sort of like wild feminine archetype, I believe, is held in Taurus. And so, of course, I love it because I'm a Taurus. I have a Taurus stellium. I'm a Taurus everything. It's a beautiful energy. I love it. And so this week, speaking of Taurus, okay, I've got clearly energy right now. Okay. So Mercury went into Aries again today. We talked about that. Tomorrow, as this episode comes out, Mars is going to go back into Leo. Anybody who's a Leo rising, Mars has been in the 12th house and it's like all things unseen. It's enemies. It's like the subconscious is these really deep things. And so like I've felt a little bit of a disconnection to it, but I've also felt it. It's like that 12th house energy is so deeply a part of us, but yet we can't quite touch it. So it's like, it's so rooted in us and sometimes we can't see it. So this really like interesting energy, but it goes back into Leo tomorrow, today, as you're listening to this. If you're listening to this on the 17th of April, it goes back into Leo. And so this is again, like Mars, Leo loves to be seen, right? Leo is dramatic. Leo is super expressive. So Mars really gets to shine in Leo. In contrast to Cancer, which is a water sign where it was super muted. It was like passive aggressive. It was a lot of that inner work. Like how are we protecting our family, our home? Are we connecting and doing the work around our ancestors? This really like deep sort of transformational work, which is so important. But when it moves into Leo, it's just like on the stage, like, look at me, I can move. Thank the Lord, or thank goodness. And so this is kind of going to be a little bit more of an exciting energy. And maybe that's the energy I'm feeling right now. I'm just like super hyped. I'm also hyped to like make this episode and talk about the manifestation stuff, because that's always been, every single time I've had a manifestation coach on the episode or on the podcast, I'm just like hooked. I'm so fascinated because I've been trying to figure out my formula for the longest time. So we'll get to that in a minute. On the 19th of April, the sun moves into Taurus. My favorite. I love Taurus season. Taurus is sensual. Taurus is a fixed earth sign, sensual, grounded. It's about money. It's about relationships. It's ruled by Venus. It rules the second house. So it's all about your self-worth. Like I always see it, like I said, it's this like raw, divine feminine energy. She's just so confident. She's so grounded. She's got curves. She's just like, that's kind of the image that comes to my mind, right? The archetype of Venus, of Taurus. But of course, we also have that bull. So don't push too hard because you will get knocked over for sure. I am a Taurus sun and a Leo moon and Leo rising, and I have a Taurus stellium. And I tell you, I am learning, I am growing, but I am one of the most stubborn people you will ever meet. Like when I was younger, I was never wrong. You were wrong. You were not going to convince me I was wrong, even when I was wrong. So I'm a lot better about it now. I think with age and growth and spiritual evolution, I can now painfully admit when I'm wrong, but it does come a little easier. So the sun moves into Taurus on the 19th. And then 30th of April is when Venus goes back into Aries. And so again, looking back to see the themes that were happening. If you journal, this is amazing. I'm obviously a huge fan of journaling because I'm always talking about it. But if you journal, you can look back to see what was happening when Venus first moved into Aries. And of course, Neptune being at 0 degrees of Aries, which is another thing. I'm not sure if that was last month or this month. No, that was last month that happened. And it was like the 30th of March or something like that Neptune went into Aries. So we talked about that in the episode last month, but all these planets that are now moving into Aries are going to find themselves conjunct with Neptune, which is kind of a beautiful energy because especially as we've been coming out of this really deep Piscean energy, we're kind of hitting Pisces, just like brushing up against it in a different way as we're moving into Aries. So before we can really like take action and go and have all these like quick things and reactionary things, right? Neptune is like, hold on, let's just like hold on to this really soft, dreamy energy just a little bit longer before we kind of like take off in Aries. So that's going to be happening on the 30th. And that's like really the biggest. Oh, the new moon in Taurus is on the 27th of April. It's happening at 2:31 p.m. at 7 degrees. It is also in gate 27. Gate 27 is like the nurturing gate. It's the gate of the nurturer. Let me, I just had my thing pulled up real quick. Let me get back to it really, really quickly so I can give you the actual name of it. It is gate of responsibility. And with the gate of responsibility, the shadow is selfishness and the gift is altruism. And so this is actually one that's really my unconscious, oh my gosh, I can't even remember what it is. I think it might be my unconscious north node, actually. I'm pulling it up real quick. Even I don't really remember every single thing in my chart. For those of you on YouTube, give me a second. This will be edited out of it. My unconscious, my north node, my unconscious north node is in gate 27. So I definitely feel this energy, this like, every time I do the work, like the money work, a lot of it comes back to this fear of responsibility, which makes sense because that is my unconscious north node, right? This is like what I'm being called to do, is to show up and take responsibility. And that's like one of my biggest blocks. And so anyway, this energy is really potent. And the new moon, let me pull it up. I thought I was better prepared for this episode, but clearly I am not. So again, this will be cut out of the podcast, but if you're watching on YouTube, bear with me. The 27th, so April 27th, at what time did I say it was? 2:31 p.m. 2:31 p.m. Okay, the sun and the moon are at 7 degrees and okay, they are square to Mars and Pluto. Mars and Pluto are in an opposition. They're not exactly exact oppositions. They will be opposite exact on the 26th. And this has happened. Mars and Pluto have been in opposition. I think this is the third time because they passed and then went back and then went back again as Mars went retrograde. Mars in opposition to Pluto. So this actually might be a little bit challenging because being square to these two planets that really bring in the Scorpio energy, because Mars and Pluto both rule Scorpio. Scorpio is Taurus's opposite, and any pair of oppositions in the chart really hold massive lessons for it. So while Taurus is super grounded and kind of slow and just really sensual, like Scorpio is really deep, right? Scorpio is a water sign, Scorpio is emotional, Scorpio is deep. We need the Taurus to ground in that energy. But we also have to go to the depths and we have to like learn to trust people and come into to like really embody that like Taurus energy. And so having this square, this is a T square, having this square to it's a T square. Having this with Pluto and Mars in opposition, there can be a lot of accidents with this. This energy is very like the word that I've used and I've heard used a lot of times when it comes to this opposition is explosive. There can be accidents that happen. Just kind of like watch out, tend to yourself, especially with Taurus being so much about the body. And so again, squares are challenging aspects that we're being called to do something about. We're being called that we can take action on. Whereas an opposition is sort of something that happens in our external. Squares are something that we're being called to take action around. So again, this Aquarius is in the square with the super fixed energy. So just be mindful. It might be, you might have a lot of frustrations coming up. You might have a lot of like deep-seated where I feel like Mars is the immature expression of our emotions, right? Mars can be really quick, it can be fiery, it can be frustrating, it can be anger, it can be aggression, like all those things. Like it's the one that's going to be like, I'm just going to scream right now and get it all out of my system. And Pluto is sort of the one where it's like, it's been festering. It is so deep inside. This is like the trauma sort of that's been sitting there and you've been avoiding it. And Pluto being so slow moving, it takes time. And then it's like this pressure cooker where it gets to the point where it's so uncomfortable that you have to express. And so with these being in opposition and with them being square to the sun and the moon at a time when typically, the moon in Taurus isn't like super emotional, it's not super dramatic, but the moon rules Cancer and it is a water sign and all the things. So it naturally is going to bring up a little bit of emotions. So this could bring a lot of explosive, a lot of anger, just a lot of things to the surface that maybe we're getting in fights, especially in our relationships, like money. Not even going to get into that because I'm not like a money expert by any means, but just these are some of the themes that might be coming up with this full moon. So I would love to say that it's going to be a really beautiful energy. And I think all moons are a beautiful energy because everything is lessons in its own right. But this one could be a little bit more sticky, a little bit more challenging. Of course, looking in your chart to see where Taurus is for you, where Leo is, where Aquarius is, where all these are going to impact your specific chart. Okay. So hopefully that was a good catch up on the transits for the remainder of the month. I didn't get into any of the smaller ones. Follow me on Instagram at Rochelle.Christian and get on the Mastery Monday newsletter. I send out transits every single week so you can get more in depth of what's going on a week-to-week basis. Before we jump into EmpowHer, EmpowHer is a small group coaching container. It is so beautiful. We're more than halfway through the first round. Second round is launching on Monday. And I usually do a deal for my birthday month or for my birthday season, we'll say. So keep an eye out for that. I will probably have it set up and linked up in the show notes by tomorrow. So by today, when this comes out, you'll be able to access that code. Because this program is beautiful. We talk about the basics of human design, which might be a freshener, which might be oh my gosh, what is the word I'm looking for? Refresher for some people. But I think it's always, always so powerful to go back to the basics. So we talk about the basics, type, strategy, and authority. We talk about PHS, how to really align with your body, how to align with your environment, and then how to understand your mind, right? Your motivation, your perspective. And then we talk about our gifts and our purpose through our centers, our incarnation cross. We go through the gene keys. We're talking about subconscious reprogramming, integrate. It is so phenomenal, and it's in a small group container. So you get to really connect with and support each other in this program. So again, that is officially, the card is opening on Monday. So get on the wait list. It's in the show notes. And again, keep an eye out for that coupon code or the discount code, because again, I always do it for my birthday. It's usually my birthday age. So just a little spoiler alert there. And yeah, keep an eye out for all that. Get on the email list if you're not on it. All the information is going to be sent out via email and be the first to know. But again, Monday, it'll all come out. Okay. So now let's talk about manifestation. I know so many of you in here love manifestation, are working on manifestation. I've been working on it for years. I've been inside of TBM, To Be Magnetic, Lacey Phillips container for years, and I understand the formula. I have gone down the law of attraction. I have really done so much work on all these things. And also, I think because we're such a society, we're such just a culture of the quick fixes. Sometimes it's really hard to play the long game when it comes to manifestation. And I think that we see people who are manifestation coaches or who are super successful and talk about manifestation. We're like, oh my gosh. And we think that it happened overnight, but it really doesn't. It really takes sometimes I will always remember this. My therapist, when I went to therapy years and years ago, we were talking about my ex and she was like, Rochelle, the thing is, people don't change unless the discomfort of being where you're at is greater than the discomfort of change. If the discomfort of where you're at is greater than the discomfort of change, that is the only way people change. And we're creatures of comfort, right? Our mind is wired to keep us safe. And so oftentimes that's why we self-sabotage. It's not because we don't want the thing. We do want the thing, but our subconscious is wired in a way that we're like, oh no, that's not safe. I know what's going to happen from this. This is why sometimes people will get in toxic relationships and their friends are like, oh my gosh, you should leave this person. What are you doing? She's crazy, whatever. But she understands why she's in that relationship. It's comfortable. She knows how it's going to play out. She knows what's going to happen. She knows they're going to fight. They're going to get back together, even though it might not feel good and everything. Her conscious mind is like, I don't want to be in this relationship. Her subconscious is like, no, but we know this. If we leave this relationship and go seek something else, are we going to be alone for the rest of our life? Is anybody going to want us? There's so many threats to the subconscious that we stay stuck and we stay where we're at. So rewiring our subconscious is the biggest, I think, and most important thing in this, and aligned action. And those are the two hardest things because it really requires consistency. We have to implement habits, daily habits that are really going to help us, that are going to support us, and really be honest about our life, right? Looking around our life and be like, okay, because our outward manifestations, literally we're always manifesting, right? We're just manifesting from what we believe we're worthy of, or we believe we can have, even though, again, our conscious mind might not want those things, right? We might want to change. We might want to get a better job. We might want to move out of our current situation. We might want to leave our relationship, but then our conscious mind, or our subconscious rather, is like, but hold on a second. This is familiar. This is familiar territory, right? And so it's really, I think sometimes we hear manifestation and we're like, oh my gosh, it's so woo woo. It's so whatever. And it's really, really science based. It's really just rewiring your subconscious. And there's been so much work done on it. And this is where I love, and I'm not a scientist and I'm not a spirituality expert. I'm in my own experiment and I'm learning. And this is just what I've learned from multiple books, so many books that I've read, so many coaches I've followed, programs I've been in. There's this place where science and spirituality meet, which I think is absolutely beautiful. And I'm studying the Kabbalah too. And that's kind of like that zone, spirituality and science kind of meet in that area. And so, again, we're manifesting from our subconscious, which is our state of being, right? Like how we are, what do we think we're worthy of? And so I always had a little bit of a hard time with the whole, like the universe tests you type thing. Cause I was like, I don't know, like, why is the universe testing me? Like, I thought like God or source or creator, whatever term you want to use, was just like light and love. And like, why would I be sent tests? But it really is, we are in this 3D world. We are in this physical manifestation. And so we're constantly having to upgrade, up level, take action to rewire those subconscious beliefs. And so the tests come in order to push us through it. And so I've been really hard in the work lately, like so hard in the work. Like my morning routine right now is, I love it. And I'm constantly, kind of was at this point where I was like, you know what? If there's ever a time to go all in, it's right now. I'm like, sometimes it's exhausting because I'm just like, I'll think a negative thought and I'm like, no, or I don't say no, but I'm like, delete, erase. We're going to rewire this with something positive. Like, I can do it. I am amazing. I am worth it. Like, why wouldn't it happen to me whenever I have like a stress around finances? I'm like, no, it's all going to work out for me. It's all working out for me. Like, I am abundant. I am magnetizing abundance. So this is like, sometimes I woke up one morning and I did my little like affirmations and I was like, man, this is kind of tiring because it's like you have to be constantly aware of your subconscious thoughts. But again, it does become easier when you're then like rewiring that over time, right? So we know that like 95% of our reality is created through the subconscious, right? Only like 5% is our conscious thoughts, which is wild to think. But when we think about it, like if we had to think about every like movement we made, we had to think about breathing, we had to think about pumping our heart, we had to think about driving our car, we have to think about even moving our fingers, we have to think about like all of that, it would be so overwhelming. So our subconscious is huge, right? It's like that iceberg analogy, right? The tip of the iceberg is what we see, that's the conscious mind. What the rest of the iceberg that's underneath is that subconscious. So we really have to begin to rewire those because those subconscious beliefs come from that 0 to 7 age range. And that's when we were walking around in a theta brainwave state, which is where we're highly susceptible to conditioning. If we look at human design, all those white centers that we have, that's when we took in and amplified the energy from others within those centers. And we took on that story to be ours, right? When it really wasn't ours. And so it is really hard to be like, I have this subconscious story that I can't do things on my own, right? Let's just say. To then you have years and sometimes decades of this reinforced belief. Every time you want to do something on your own, maybe a parent was like, oh, just let me do it, right? And it's like, I believe the parents are always well-intentioned. I see the things that I do with my kids too, right? And I'm like, oh, I mean well, and then I have to like back up a little bit. But well-intentioned, although then that child takes on that story like, I can't. I'm incapable. I'm not able to do this. Every time I try, I'm told that I can't. So then we take on that narrative to be our own. So it really takes a lot of like, I love journaling because every time, when you get triggered or reflection, I was doing like a nightly reflection for a while. And that was really helpful because it allowed me to see the stories I built up. And so then being able to like, no, I am capable. Like, why couldn't I do it? Right. And then, so To Be Magnetic talks about expanders. And that is basically like you're finding somebody who had a similar life situation and who has what you're working towards. Right. So somebody who is doing the thing or has the thing that you want to have, finding that person and aligning with their story, the closer to your story that their story is, the more of an expander. It's seeing to believing is essentially all it is. And again, I got this is from To Be Magnetic. They talk about expanders in their program, but I found this to be really helpful. And I even like put in ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT, I described myself, I described my place in life, I described my childhood, and I was like, find me 3 to 5 expanders that will align with my story that is showing me like seeing to believe. And it gave me amazing expanders and it made me a little vision board. So now I have that in my phone that I can look at when I need inspiration, which is really helpful. But I think like all of these practices are super helpful. One of the most important things, Like no matter what you're doing, no matter what modality you're doing, no matter what you're learning, no matter like anything, nervous system regulation. So crucial because we cannot heal, we cannot do anything if we're coming from a dysregulated nervous system. If our body, if our system does not feel safe, you cannot heal. Unfortunately, it's the most important thing that you can do for yourself. And so this really requires establishing habits, putting things in place that you can constantly come back to, and then it becomes a go-to. So then when you feel a little bit triggered, then you go to that. I found this over during the full moon. I was feeling really activated, and my go-to is like when I feel these emotions, it's like, again, that we're this culture of instant gratification, right? We've become this like society of instant gratification. So I immediately wanted to send the text or make the call or like do the thing to like kind of like move the energy. But I was like, no, I have been listening to the Kabbalah. And one thing that he was talking about, so your tikkun is your soul's correction. It's tied to your nodes. But it's kind of the thing you're come here to heal. And you can, when you look back at your relationships, your career, like your life, you'll see this pattern drawn out over and over and over again. But he was saying when that comes up, what you need to do is starve it. And for some reason, that wording, I was like, whoa, it hits so hard because we want the instant gratification, but then we're feeding it. It's kind of like your gut. If you're feeding it sugar, all those bad bacteria are going to grow and populate. But when you remove the sugar, yeah, it doesn't feel good, but over time, you will then be able to have a healthy gut microbiome. You'll be able to sleep better. You're making better choices. You feel better. You're moving your body. Like all these beautiful things naturally come from that, but it comes from starving it. It comes from actually going through the pain and the suffering of having to then remove the thing you've constantly been getting these hits of, this dopamine. And so it's really uncomfortable. And so what we need to do in those moments is regulate our nervous system. So we're coming into ourselves. I decided to tap, I think I did an Astro Nidra. And I was like, you know what? This is where I really lean into my emotional authority, but I'm like, I'm not going to do anything about this until tomorrow. I'm just not. I'm going to let it sit. And so I think that's a really, really good one to do is like, feel it. We're not rejecting it. We're not suppressing it. We're not avoiding it. We're feeling it, but we're not doing anything about it, right? The solar plexus, I've talked about this over the course of this past week. I sent out an email, all the things, but the solar plexus is a motor and awareness center in human design. So as a motor, it wants to move. It is this energy that's like, we need to move it through us. So like going for a walk, working out, shaking our body, dancing, whatever hula hooping. I've been hula hooping, right? Something that's going to move the energy through you, tapping, that also moves the energy through you. So anything that moves the energy, but the awareness comes through the patience, through the pause, through the waiting, right? So this is like the part about the nervous system regulation. And then when we're doing this, we can kind of get clear on like the limiting beliefs, the root cause, our patterns, like our go-tos, right? You fight, flight, freeze, fawn, like what is your thing? But like always kind of coming back to that pause can be really helpful. But again, emotions. So when we look at manifestation as well, when we look at rewiring our subconscious and recreating patterns, these subconscious beliefs were instilled through repetition and emotion. And so the way to rewire that is the same thing, right? We have to bring in the emotions, but I'm talking like love and light. And it sounds so like new age and woo woo, whatever, but like that is when we're creating a new pattern, we have to like really feel it in our body. Otherwise it's not going to stick. So this has kind of been my practice, and I've just like been at it and I've been at it. And I'm like, I believe that it's going to happen. I believe that it's going to happen. And like I said, there was a situation over the weekend that was kind of testing me, and my old self would have just like run and fed it and been like, okay, like whatever. And I felt the old familiar like tug of like, like that restriction, but I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And I woke up the next morning and I felt actually so neutral around the situation. And I still do. I'm like, whoa. And it's like one of those things when you pass these tests, then when you're in this neutral space, like other doors open and other doors have opened, and it's actually wild. Like it's not wild, but it is. So it's like seeing these things, but still, even when we start to see some sort of movement, and this is where I feel like I have fallen into, we do have this like window of tolerance, right? We have this like cap almost, excuse me. And so it's like, can I push past that cap now. Now I've kind of like started the manifestation, like the momentum's coming. Can I move past that cap that I usually find that my subconscious self-sabotage? Can I move past that? Can I stay in this space? Can I continue to regulate? Can I continue to rewire? Can I continue to take aligned action? Which is like sometimes the hardest piece is to take that aligned action, right? Can I continue to stay in that space and move past that? And then the beautiful things will be on the other side. So some practices you can do around manifestation. Some that have been supporting me is EFT tapping. First and foremost, I've been doing this every single day. I even put a chat GPT prompt in. Again, I put a chat GPT prompt in that I asked it to really ask me questions and get clear on my money story. And so I put like, it asked me questions, I answered like pages, and then I had it create an EFT tapping that I'm now doing daily. Working with the moon is a new one that I've been doing as well. Like, so wherever the signs, this requires you to know the houses in your chart, but wherever the signs are, so like Sagittarius for me is 5th house energy, right? And so right now, as I'm recording this, the moon is in Sagittarius. So doing things that are fun, doing things that are playful, doing things that are bringing up adventure, curiosity, learning, like these things are kind of like nourishing that moon. Now, when the moon moves into Capricorn for me is more in my 6th house. So creating a little bit of structure, creating routines, really focusing on my health. Like those are the sort of practices and rituals that I can do with the moon as that goes through. So this has just been really helpful to me. Subconscious journaling prompts. There are so many online that you can find just to really like get clear on your subconscious beliefs and begin to rewire them, because we have to get them out of our mind and our body, like onto paper is so helpful. Visualization, self-hypnosis, really taking advantage of those theta brainwave states, which is first thing in the morning or last thing at night. I use HypnoCloud app, and I do that pretty much every single night. It's either that or an Astro Nidra before, as I'm drifting off to bed, so that really my subconscious is picking up on those things. And then just daily nervous system check-in. Like if I start to feel like tight or anxious, I'm really familiar with what that feels like in my body. I get curious. Okay, like why is this happening? Can I regulate? Can I get outside? Can I walk? Can I jump around? Can I hula hoop? Can I do something to like move this energy around? And then just get real curious and like what's coming up. Again, that nervous system regulation is so key. And just like, I mean, something that's been helping me is just like communicating, or I don't know if you want to say praying, I guess, with the creator and just offering it all up and be like, what tarot has been really helpful. And for me, that's kind of like tarot is I'm connecting beyond myself. I'm connecting to source. I'm connecting to my guides, to spirit, to all those things. So a lot of times just the questions that I ask through the tarot is like, what do I need to know right now? Like, what is my medicine, right? Like, what is the next best thing I can do? Like, it's all about like being in this current moment, right? Like, what can I do now to support myself? And then usually, I mean, it's like always on point, and like sometimes it's a little challenging, but I'm like, okay, I see you. And so that's just really, really helpful. So I also created an EFT tapping that you can, I'll put the link down the show notes if you want it. It's just a little tapping that I made that will help you regulate, come into your body. And so, yeah, if you want that one, I'm going to leave that link below. If you loved, or if you enjoyed the episode, if you loved the episode, share it with a friend, rate, review, subscribe. Spotify, it's just those 5 stars. You can find me on Instagram at Rochelle.Christiane, ROCHELE.CHRISTIANE. Website is RochelleChristiane.com. And all of the ways that you can work with me, again, Empower begins. I'm opening the cart for Empower on Monday, and it begins 3 weeks from that day. I think that's May, the first week of May is when it begins. So I hope that you'll join us. I hope to see you in there, and I will talk to you next week.